So we're going to look at Duck's breakdown of relationships. So this is a stage model. It's going to go through the different phases of relationship breakdown. So Duck believes that relationships end in stages, and the length of each of those stages, or how quickly a couple will move through each of those stages, is dependent on the length of the relationship that they were in. Duck also believed that there were 3 common reasons for relationships breaking down. So there might be different reasons, but they would broadly fit within these 3 sort of broader categories. So pre-existing doom is when the relationship ends because it's predictable from the start. So there have been serious differences in views or opinions and attitudes from the beginning. So it's just the idea that the relationship would never really work out. It's always destined to end up in a breakdown or ending of the relationship. Mechanical failure is when a couple find out that they cannot continue the relationship any longer because the relationship itself doesn't work. So this is generally seen as the most common type. So they've just reached the end of the relationship. It doesn't seem to be working anymore. And the final one is sudden death. And this is when an unpredicted event causes a couple to split. So it could be that there's been a traumatic event between the couple, or one of them has cheated, so it just ends straight away. So if we were to look at the different phases and stages, we have the breakdown. So one of the partners starts to become dissatisfied and unhappy with the relationship, and it will start to progress to the intrapsychic stage. So they start to think that they can't do this relationship anymore. They're not happy. They feel dissatisfied with the relationship and start to consider how and when to end the relationship. And they start to brood on all of the issues in the relationship, and they might start to think that they'd be better off out of the relationship, either being single or starting a new relationship with someone else. Moves to the dyadic phase, where they would start to think that they would be justified in walking away from that relationship. So the dissatisfied partner shares their feelings and confronts their partner with their unhappiness, and they start to discuss the relationship at that stage. Now the relationship can be saved at this stage if they decide to resolve the issues and to try to restore the happiness and satisfaction within that relationship. It will progress to the social stage if they feel that they can't save the relationship, and this is where resolution of the relationship isn't possible, and they make their split public, so friends and family are told about it. And then the final phase is grave dressing. So this is when the relationship has ended and it's about moving on now. So each partner will create their own version of the failed relationship. They will start to rebuild their relationship, and they will tell their own version of events. So they will try to portray themselves in a positive light, so that they were justified for leaving and that they weren't to blame, it was the other person's fault. So if we look at some AO1 style questions that there have been on this topic. So we've had a multiple choice one. Which one of the following sequence shows the correct order of Duck's phases in relationship breakdown? Write the letter in your answer booklet. So remember, paper 1 is the option booklet, so you will have a separate question paper and an answer booklet. So this is requiring you to write the answer, not shading in. So this would be B, so it goes intrapsychic, dyadic, social, and grave dressing. So it's important to remember the sequence. Name and outline one of the stages of Duck's phase model. So you get a mark for naming it, so you could say intrapsychic, dyadic, social, or grave dressing, and then you get further 2 marks for outlining what happens in that stage. Then we've got an AO2 styled question. So Barbara and Jemima are both having relationship difficulties with their respective partners. Barbara says, "I'm really fed up and wish the relationship was over, but I can't tell him because he thinks everything is fine." Jemima says, "We're getting through it slowly. We've told the children what's going to happened to them and sorted out the money side. My mum was upset, but she's okay about it now. Friends take side, of course. So referring to Barbara and Jemima's comment, outline 2 stages of relationship breakdown proposed by Duck. So Barbara is in the intrapsychic phase because she is feeling unhappy, but she hasn't yet told her partner. So if she told him she'd be in the dyadic phase, but because she hasn't, she's in the intrapsychic. So she's feeling dissatisfied. She's considering ending the relationship, and she's beginning to think about when she can tell her partner. Now, Jemima is at the social phase because people have been told about what is going to happen, and friends are beginning to take sides. So friends and families have been made aware that the split is official and it is going to happen. So moving then on to our AO3R evaluation. So we have some supporting evidence. So we've got a survey of undergraduates who have broken up with their partners, and it's been found that through the grave dressing phase that they'd experienced personal growth, and they gained insights into themselves and had a clearer idea about future partners. So they were able to put the original relationship to rest and move on with their lives. So this suggests that grave dressing does happen. So they reflect and they move on. We've got contradictory evidence, and the fact that it's culturally biased, it's ethnocentric, it's based on white middle class individuals. And as relationships are affected by the culture and the social expectations that they form in, it might not be applicable to collectivist cultures. So, for example, where cultures where divorce and separation is frowned upon, the social processes of the phase will be different in those cultures when compared to Western societies or individualistic societies where relationship breakdown is more widely accepted. In terms of other, then, it simply just describes the process. It doesn't necessarily explain why it happens. So although it does have face validity, it does seem that we do go through phases and stages of relationship breakdown. It doesn't explain the reasons behind that. It just describes the breakdown process. Equally, it's an incomplete model. Later on, Rowley and Duck added a final phase after the grave dressing phase, and they called it the resurrection phase. And this is where each partner prepares himself for a new relationship and builds on the mistakes and experiences of that relationship that had ended. But it is useful. There are real life applications. It can help partners cope with the breakdown more positively. So research has compared couples who received relationship skill training and those that did not. Those that had had been trained later reported much higher marital satisfaction compared to couples in the control group. So it can help with marital and relationship counselling. So to look at an essay style question, outline and evaluate research into the breakdown of relationships. So it says research here. So remember, for AQA, research can mean research studies. So you could talk about a specific study into this area, but it also means explanations and theories. So with this, I would talk about the phase model. So this is what this question is guiding you to ask. So just because it says research, don't think that I haven't been taught a specific study about this. Research means explanations and theories as well. So you talk about Duck's phase model and each stage of those for your AO1. So you could talk about the idea that he says that couples and relationships end during phases. It depends on the length of the relationship, how quickly they progress. You could talk about he believes that there are 3 reasons why they break down. So pre-existing doom, sudden death and mechanical failure, and then you can talk about each of the stages in more detail. In terms of AO3 then, you would bring in 3 evaluation points approximately and try to point, evidence, explain and link them back to that question. So does this model offer a good explanation of why relationships break down or not?